Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, your one-stop shop for daily Miami Heat content. My name is Amir. Got a special episode for you guys. I got David joining the podcast once again. It's been a long time since you were on my show specifically. I know you have been on Martell's a few times recently, but before we get started on today's episode, David, do you want to just introduce yourself again, remind the audience where they can find you online?
Yeah, David Farrell. You can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at dfarrell15, and then you can also look at some of our posts on our network at Playbook SN, Playbook Sports. Appreciate you.
And all the spaces, obviously, they host a bunch of is it pregame and postgame you guys usually do?
We were doing pregame for a minute. I got a schedule change, and you know how life works. So we're still doing halftime spaces, still doing postgame spaces. Ray and the crew. Make sure you guys follow my boy Ray. Definitely, we host spaces. Ready to
Shout
go.
out to Ray. Shout out to Ray going to his first Miami game in Miami. So it looked like he had a
Hey,
fun time watching the Miami Heat smoke the Golden State Warriors and Jimmy's return. And that kind of sparked this 4-game winning streak right now. So the Miami Heat were on a 10-game winning streak, and everybody
easy.
on Heat Twitter were just happy, like hoping for the actual tank, which obviously the Miami Heat do not do. Hoping that we were gonna like see some mysterious, Bam Adebayo injury or Tyler Hero injury come up and just call it quits with 12 games or so at that time, or there was like 14 games at the time before the win streak. So I thought that could have been a possibility, but we know the Heat don't tank, and they've won 4 in a row. They're now tied with the Bulls. They're still 10th. The Bulls have a tiebreaker, and yeah, we have a really easy schedule. We have 9 games left, and most of the games are easy except for maybe Memphis and Boston. The Milwaukee game might not be as tough because of Damian Lillard, so prayers up to Dame with the deep vein thrombosis. Same thing that Chris Bosh had ended his career, but hopefully it could be like a Brandon Ingram situation where Ingram was able to continue his career. So, yeah, just what are your thoughts on this 4-game winning streak? Like what are your thoughts on the whole tankathon also with the Miami Heat? Like, because a lot of folks on Heat Twitter, like I said, wanted this Heat team to tank. So, are you upset that the Miami Heat are on this 4-game winning streak? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when the tankathon started, I'm not gonna lie to you, I was nervous because we don't really get in the situation often where we're losing this many games at like this rate. So I definitely am never gonna be about the tanking life, but at the same time, the way that the team was just moving, and if we did see any Bam or Tyler injuries along the way, I definitely would have said, yeah, we're probably tanking at this point. But I'm not upset with the 4 game win streak. I think it's just been really refreshing to see Miami play basketball at a high level on both ends of the floor, holding like the 15-1 when they hold their opponents under 100 points this year. And obviously, that's never going to be sustainable in today's NBA. But just for the simple fact of how gritty they can be on the defensive end, and then on top of it, just like rest of the time for the defense, I think that they just been playing phenomenal on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, they've been averaging 118 points in these 4 games, almost 119, and their season average is like 109 or 110. So they've been spectacular, and they have also had a historic 4 games where they shot over 52% as a team from 3 on over 130 attempts. And no other team has done that besides the 2015 Golden State Warriors with the Splash Brothers. So they've been playing amazing defense. Offense has been obviously spectacular. Tyler Hero is finally playing consistently well and efficient. We'll see how long that lasts. So kudos to him. Shout out to Tyler too for playing 70 games. So Tyler hit the 70 game mark first time in his young career. 67 was the most he's ever played. So what are your thoughts on Tyler? because he's had a kind of up and down season, all-star season. He's been amazing. He's been one of our best players, but it hasn't led to winning. It's not his fault. But sometimes I criticize and say, if he's a true all-star or an elite level all-star, like why is it not equating to wins, right? Especially in those games where we blew 15 fourth quarter leads, 17 second half leads, most in the NBA. Because if we won half of those games, our season could be different. This is all before the 10-game streak. But what are your thoughts on Tyler and his recent play? And the controversial question, do you think the Miami Heat extend him this offseason or next? I know he's eligible this offseason for a 200 million max where you'll be making like 50 million or so a year, or maybe 45. What are your thoughts? Do we give him the max? Do we trade him? But before you get to that point, just what are your thoughts on his current play? Let's talk about the positive first.
Yeah, obviously talk about the positives. I truly am happy for Tyler Hero. The one knock that we as Heat fans have had on him throughout his career so far is just the ability to stay healthy. We missed him on a finals run, and he's had injuries like during the seasons at times in during his career, and obviously things happen, and some of these injuries are just kind of like freak accidents, but overall just the ability to stay healthy this year. 70 game mark already. I'm just glad to see that kid, bounce back from all those injuries and really put on like his best performance of his career so far. So, big kudos to Tyler Hero and what he's doing this year. Definitely love to see him playing out of his mind offensively, especially as of late, right? These last 4 games averaging almost 30 is crazy. So, definitely like to see that. Do we resign him? It's a very, very hard question to answer, only because I don't think they should, just in general of the fact that this team has to pick a direction in which they want to go. And I feel like if you sign Tyler, you're going to, tie him and Bam together. And are we really like comfortable with the way that they've been making decisions like just as of late? And to put that into perspective about building around those two in the future just has me more concerned. So if you were to trade him, obviously get whatever like pieces you can, whether it be draft picks, whether it be, all-star caliber player, whatever Tyler Tyler's value is. I think that the Heat should explore all options before they just hand him the max.
Yeah, I like where he's at. I mean, because right now he's making 29 this season. That's a
Hmm.
steal with today's CBA for the way he's performing as an all-star. Goes up to 31
All-star
next.
player.
Yeah, 31 next year and 33 the year after that. Like that's amazing. Like let's see you finish out that contract and play it out, and stay on this roster unless obviously you can trade him for I don't know if you would trade him for a Kevin Durant, obviously that could be a big mistake, but you trade him for like a Giannis or an Anthony Edwards or anybody like that's got to be part of the centerpiece. I mean, with Giannis though, I don't think actually. Let's retract that. If Giannis somehow becomes available, and there could be speculation, he had mentioned Miami, New York as maybe destinations that he would go to, and we're assuming if Damian Lillard can't come back, the Bucks are toast. This will be the second year they don't get to play together, so maybe he can ask out. Very unlikely, I guess, but he said a few months ago, I don't plan on asking out or ever asking, but things could happen, or the organization can just trade him without his like kind of like how Luka was traded. But anyway, if he became available though, like they're asking for Bam, like for Giannis, right? Like if they're like Tyler is not even a part of that. Like you keep Tyler to pair with that star. But I agree with you. Like if someone is available, you see what his value is. But I don't know if it's going to get to that point because I feel like Tyler's going to ask for that extension early on. Like I think he's not going to wait to play out that contract, like because he knows like his injury history, like he could get injured and like you might not be able to get that money. So he wants to get that signed and that's guaranteed, right? So I'm with you on that though. We'll see. Like I don't think we should give it to him. And that's because I just don't think he's worth 50 upwards of 45 to 50 million. Like if you look at the top players next season, like the most anybody's going to be making is like 55, 60 million. And that's like the Lucas, the Steph Currys, the LeBrons of the world. Like I don't think he's in that echelon yet. So my next question though, so we did talk about no tanking. I'm with you on that. Like when they were on that 10-game losing streak, like it was unreal that they kept stacking up those losses, especially to some bad teams, like losing
Yeah.
to Charlotte, losing to the Bulls, and losing like 6 out of those 10 games where we had double-digit leads. But I was never rooting for my team to lose because that's loser mentality. That's bullshit. And I would only root for them to lose if we actually had a real chance of like competing with the Wizards and Toronto and those teams for a top actual 5 pick, right? We're in purgatory. We're stuck in the 9-10 range and like we don't have a great chance of Cooper Flag. Like maybe we can get lucky like the Hawks did last season or whatever, right? When they were the 10th pick in the play-in and got it, but that's not going to happen. So um, I was upset that they were losing, but I got to the point where I'm like, they're so bad that it's fine. Like actually just I have no expectations anymore, right? This was before the 10-game losing streak. Like I wasn't as mad. Like I'm not going to root for them to lose, but I'm not mad that they're losing at this point because it is what it is. But my question to you, do you want the Miami Heat to win the play in? So it doesn't seem like they can get out of it, right? So they're most likely going to end up ninth or 10th, maybe eighth. Who knows? That's if the Hawks somehow flounder, but I don't see it happening. They're ahead 3.5 games and they have an easier schedule than us actually. So
Hmm.
do you want the Miami Heat to make the playoffs and get the consolation of playing either Boston or the Cavs? Or do you want them not to make the playoffs, lose in the play-in tournament, and they get the 2 draft picks, right? So they get the Thunder pick, and they get the Golden State Warriors pick. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because then the other piece is that if they do make the playoffs, they don't get the pick, but their 2 picks that they owe to the Hornets and Thunder in the future are lottery protected. So, where do you sit like on that kind of conversation?
So
It's
if
tough.
you miss the playoff, I mean, however you slice it, like I think you're gonna have a good pick regardless in this next upcoming draft, and it's a good draft. So definitely, no matter where you're at, obviously, if you lose more, you definitely give yourself a better chance at getting just that higher selection. So obviously, that's always in the back of everyone's mind. If they do lose, like we have the second easiest schedule remaining in the league, the rest of these games. So I don't anticipate them losing too much, but at the same time just from the inconsistency this season, anything is on the table. Now, if we were to make the playoffs, I mean, you're talking about the consolation of playing Boston or Cleveland, but for me, it's more about getting those 2 picks if you're going to make the playoffs. Like that, at that point, that's the real winner in that because just being realistic, when you're going into a 7-game series with either of those 2 teams, I don't think Miami has enough to get past that those opponents right now. So either way, it'll be nice to make the playoffs. Obviously, like you want to see your team compete in the playoffs, and if they somehow like go on this upset run and stuff, the delusion that comes out of our fan base sometimes, but somehow go on a magical run, definitely would love to see them possibly do that, but I don't think that it's going to happen. I think that they might just miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah. So, do you prefer that though? Because again, if we miss the playoffs, we get our picks. Then we have 2 picks, right? So what is your preference though? Would you prefer us to not make the playoffs? Because that's the bonus. If we don't make the playoffs, we get 2 draft picks. If we make the playoffs, we only get 1 pick. That's the Warriors pick. So do you have a preference though? Like based on that, like do you want the 2 picks or do you want them to make the playoffs and their picks are protected in the future? Because I don't know. I'm still torn on that. Right? Like if they make the playoffs,
I like
they're gonna get.
I like the future. I like the future. I like the future.
So you want them
I'm
to make the
just
playoffs?
I do want them to make the playoffs. I just wanted to know if they're like I asked earlier, and obviously it's not a possibility kind of, but I just kind of wanted them to do both, like possibly make the playoffs and also like be bad enough to where they're actually gonna have a good pick. You know what I'm saying? But that's not realistic. So obviously I would like to see the team make the playoffs and get those 2 picks of the future.
Yeah, because then they like if they suck next year because they're gonna run it back unless we make a big move in the offseason or so, or trade someone and get a Kevin Durant or a Trey Young or whoever becomes available. If we don't get those types of players, we're running it back with Tyler, with Bam, with Wiggins, with Anderson, like with Kalel Ware, with Jovic and Jaime. Like it's the same basic core. Duncan Robinson, Terry Rozier, like Davion Mitchell. We could talk about like you could re-sign him. He's going to be a restricted free agent. Alec Burks is going to be a free agent, and we're basically going to have the exact same team. And if Bam or Tyler get hurt next year, or even a Wiggins, and they're out for the season at the beginning of the year, which you never know, then we're screwed because then we don't get our lottery pick that year. Then the Thunder, can you imagine the Thunder winning a championship this year, and then next year the Heat like have the worst record, like 15 wins, because Tyler tore his ACL in the first game of the season, and instead of us getting a top 3 guaranteed pick, like nope, it's unprotected, so it goes to the Thunder. So that scares me, but I also don't mind the idea of getting 2 picks in this stacked draft. And again, if the Heat lose like some of these 9 games, then their odds get even better, having a worse record,
Right.
and they have a higher chance. But it's still they're in a shitty like position right now because that this 4 game win streak, kind of takes them out of getting a better opportunity at getting a higher pick. Like a week ago, before this 4 game win streak, we had the 8th worst record in the NBA, right? So like we actually had a worse record than the Spurs, Portland, Bulls, and we had a 26% chance at getting a top 4 pick. Now, because of this 4 game winning streak, we're now back to the 11th best record, and now we only have a 12% chance. So that's been cut in half. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But my last thing I want to ask you too, real quick, is thoughts on Terry Rozier. One, he's going to be on an expiring contract next year. Thank God. So hopefully we can trade him. If not, his contract expires, we let him go. But what are your thoughts on his latest conversation, basically saying that like he's been playing bad because he doesn't fit in like his role? Like it's just he doesn't understand what his role is. He doesn't get to play his style, which is shitty basketball. Like what are your thoughts on Terry's comments recently about his struggles this year? Because I thought it was pretty funny when he's saying like I don't know how to fit in with this team. Like I don't know what my role is. It's like your role is to score, like and not take fadeaway, step back, shitty threes, and not airballing layups and turning the ball over and point shaving every game. So it's like what are your thoughts on that before
Oh
we
yeah.
close?
I mean, so for the most part, when you were talking about earlier, and this is goes kind of to my point, if you pay Tyler and everything, and you just lock him and Bam together, and you like build around that, you definitely got to start trading a lot of these pieces that you have on this team. And it really doesn't matter who at this point. Obviously, you want to keep Ware. For me personally, I love the Bam Ware front court future. I think that's definitely like a direction that he could definitely look forward to developing. But for the most part, I think when it comes to Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, Jaime Jaquez, all these guys are expandable. And if you go and you trade them and everything, and that'll be fine. You those are contracts. Terry Rozier, Duncan Robinson, they make like 50 million combined in
Yep.
contracts. So you definitely want to get that money off the table, especially if it's production that's not producing. So definitely want to get that in, and if you can't, you run it back with this team. It's just gonna look a lot like what you see.
Yeah. Thank God though Terry's contract is expiring because Duncan's is only 9 million guaranteed of the 19 next year. But yeah, Terry has like close to 25 million and he's unplayable at this point. And thank God we have
Unplayable.
Davion Mitchell has been great. He's only making 6 million
Yeah,
this year. If we
yeah.
give him the qualifying offer and sign him next season as a restricted free agent, he'll make 8.59 million a season. And that's still not even half of what Terry Rozier is going to make next year. And he's
And he's on
doing
the dollar
more than
comparison.
4x of, yeah, he's doing 4 times more than what Terry Rozier is doing. And I'm just hoping we could re-sign Davion for somewhere around, the 8 to 10 million max, right? Like give him a little bonus. He's making 6, give him like a 2 year contract, maybe like 2 years, 18 million, 19 million or something. And I think I'm cool with that.
Yeah, I mean, however you can move off from the situation, especially like for Terry Rozier too. Like I think just for me in general, I just watched him, and I think he just really, really needs like a new change of scenery. Like he needs a fresh start wherever that is, whether if it's in Lithuania or whether it's another NBA team. I don't care how he gets it. The guy deserves to be happy in life, and he's not happy here in Miami. It's kind of like Jimmy, except he doesn't have that talent. So unfortunately, like we're stuck with him until they can trade him, or we're gonna just let his contract expire, and that's gonna destroy this fan base.
Yeah. Hey, but at least he's an NBA player making 25 million a year, so I think his mental health is should be fine, right? Like he's fine. I think he's having a good time hanging out like with strippers and porn stars and you know doing illegal
Hey,
gambling behind the scenes. This guy's living a life.
there you
You know,
go.
he's living in the fast lane.
He's loving it.
He
He's
is.
loving it.
Anyway, thank you so much for hopping on, David. Really appreciate your time.
Appreciate it,
Again,
man.
before we hop off, just want to remind everybody else where they can find you again.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at dpharaoh15, and then you can follow my content over at Playbook Sports at Playbook SM. Appreciate
Awesome.
you for having me on again.
Yeah, no problem, man. Take care. Have a good one.
You too, man.